Today on the Forgiven Nutritionist podcast, I'm talking with Mark Tullius. He's a former fighter and an Ivy League football player turned author. The majority of Mark's work is fiction, with his focus on his interactive Try Not to Die series. Mark also writes nonfiction. He traveled to 100 gyms and interviewed 340 fighters for Unlocking the Cage, an exploration of MMA fighters, and followed it up by exploring his brain damage with TBI or CTE, What the Hell is Wrong with Me? He's currently working on a follow-up to that book, which details his experiences at the Amen clinics and deals with brain health, called Try Not to Die with TBI and Try Not to Die by Your Own Hand. Here's a clip from today's show.
So I think a lot of people just think, well, this is just who I am. It's not going to change, but you can change those things. A lot of people don't want to look at their negative behaviors, I think. Now, I had to look at them because I didn't want to throw away my life. I'm incredibly grateful for what I have. My family, my house, just everything. Lucky to be alive. I was suicidal most of my life. I didn't think I'd make it past 24. Now I'm 52 and probably in one of the healthiest and happiest times of my life. So therapy has definitely been a major factor. I tell everyone, yeah, you should do it. Everyone has issues. Everyone has something from their parents, from their childhood, from whatever, some kind of trauma, and it would only probably help.
Hey everyone, just a quick break to show some gratitude to our sponsors and give you some special deals. BrainMD nutraceuticals are high-quality supplements specifically designed to support and enhance brain health. Developed by Dr. Daniel Amen and his team of experts, these supplements use carefully selected ingredients backed by scientific research to promote cognitive function, mood stability, and overall mental wellness. BrainMD's commitment to purity and efficacy assures that their supplements provide targeted nutrition for the optimal brain performance and long-term brain health. Be sure to click my link in the show notes. Well, thank you so much for joining me tonight, Mark.
Oh, thank you. This is amazing. Really looking forward to it. Thank you for having me on.
Well, I know I just did a little introduction about you, but why don't you tell my listeners a little bit more about yourself? Because I only recently learned that you are an author. So tell us just a little bit about yourself.
Well, being an author takes up a lot of my time. Author/publisher. I'm an independent publisher. With my Try Not to Die interactive series, I team up with different authors from around the world. Book 15 comes out in 2 weeks, and we have another 20 or more scheduled for the next 2 to 3 years. So that takes up a lot of my time. I also did some nonfiction with about studying fighters, MMA fighters, where I went around the country. Followed that up with a book on traumatic brain injuries. And now, because I realized I still was dealing with a lot of the brain issues, I am going to be doing a follow-up to that book. And a lot of that will focus on my time at the Amen Clinic and what they've given me.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, since you were talking about brain health, what kind of started off your whole questioning or thinking maybe that something was going on in your brain?
I know the exact moment. I had just come from, so when I was going around the country interviewing MMA fighters, I was also training again with these fighters. Went from being, 250 pounds, stay-at-home dad, out of shape, to where I was able to get to where I was sparring with pros. And it was one day at 10th Planet headquarters in Los Angeles. My friend was going with me. He's my photographer. He was taking all these photos. And after a pretty hard session that day, he asked me, he's like, hey, have you ever looked into brain damage? I was like, no, why should I? He's like, these guys are half your age, 3 times your talent, and they're beating the crap out of you. He's like, you might want to start looking into it. And so I was like, okay, I'll look into it. And I didn't think anything of it. But once I started doing some research and I was posting about it online, then I had friends that I played football with at Brown University. They were writing to me saying, hey, my brain is screwed. Hey, I'm in this brain study. Hey, I'm going to kill myself. Hey, what can I do? What can I do? So that scared me because these were all guys that didn't go on to abuse their brain even more after football like I did. After I got done with college football, I went into MMA with very little experience. I went into professional boxing with no amateur experience. I was, very reckless. I did all this other damage to myself. So I was like, that started making me worry a little bit. I was like, well, if these guys didn't do as much as I did after college, hopefully they did a lot more before. I was like, I should at least look at this because maybe I could help them. So that was the start of the TBI book and looking at brain injuries. And then for part of that, I was like, well, I should also just do the test just to, because my wife thought I was fine too. She kept saying, oh yeah, you're fine. I'm fine. I might be angry. I might be all these other things, but that's what a man is, right? And so I just kept writing it off until I started doing the testing. So the first was with Dr. Mark Gordon. I did my blood work through him, and we saw, oh yeah, for sure I had tons of TBIs. It had decimated my hormones. And so 2 weeks after being on his program of the supplements and everything else, I started feeling so much better, and that's when it really hit me. I was like, oh my God, I've been living with so much anxiety and depression and anger and rage that I had no idea. Just because a little bit had been reduced, I was like, oh man, I was like, I can't believe that I had even been living with that. And so it just got better after that. Also went to a NUCA doctor. I forget exactly what it is, but it's upper cervical chiropractic. And we were able to see that I was very off from all the blows to the head, from accidents, from whatever. And so that was definitely affecting things. We got that adjusted. I did testing for my attention and focus, and I started going to neurofeedback because I did a scan of my brain, QEG, and saw that my frontal lobe was just so underfunctioning. My entire brain was very, very underfunctioning. And there might have been a couple other tests I did. I had also gone to the Cleveland Clinic. I was part of their fighter program where they did brain testing and MRI. But yeah, all along I was, so it was kind of devastating to hear that news, but also, I'd also done all this damage to myself, so I couldn't be too upset about it. But that was how it all started. That was how I discovered that no, I wasn't okay. I definitely had a lot of brain damage.
Well, and I think you said a lot in there that's really good information to kind of unpack, because one of the things too is I think that as people just get older, naturally we just assume, oh, I'm just getting older, instead of associating with, oh, maybe I have traumatic brain injury, or maybe the food I'm eating is contributing to, X, Y, and Z. And so I think it's really good that you started to actually think about and address some of the things, or really dig deeper into, okay, maybe some of this isn't, oh, I'm just a man, and of course I'm going to be angry. You started to really kind of put a couple pieces together and dig a little deeper into that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I couldn't deny it. I couldn't deny the tests. I think that was one of the biggest things. Like, okay, because I was able to fool myself into thinking I was fine because I was still testing really high, like on brain games. I could do great at lumosity, so I was like, well, my brain must be working fine. It works fine there. I'm able to write a book. It must be fine there. So my idea of what brain health wasn't. It wasn't what it is now, and then also not really. I was also spent lots of my life hating myself, very destructive, and so I was really having to fight those feelings as well, and just not even wanting to look at it, not wanting to know. I didn't want to know that I had brain damage because at the time I was thinking like, okay, just like with every other fighter, you see that they're going to decline, right? It's a downward spiral. There's no going up. There's no improving. I didn't know that was possible. I don't think it was until I listened to Dr. Mark Gordon, I think he was on the Joe Rogan podcast, that I was like, oh, wait, we can improve our brains. We can fix this. We could get, optimize our hormones and everything else. So, and that's one of the nice things too, is like by doing that, not only did I improve my brain, but just my overall health is so much better because of all the supplements, because of better eating, because of, I realize now the importance of exercise. I hadn't been getting enough of that either. And so now I know a lot more of what I need, trying to add all the good stuff in, and then also taking away all of the negatives, really trying to cut back on negatives, and just making those decisions every day. And I think the other thing I've really learned too is like, okay, it is a daily thing. Like, today was honestly a really rough day for me until we got on. I've been pretty upset since like 7 o'clock this morning. I was able to get through homeschool and do a good job homeschooling my son and be loving and everything else, but something happened this morning at jiu-jitsu that just triggered me, and then so all day long I've been kind of on edge, and I just have to remember, it's like, okay, well, as soon as this is over, I'm going to go into my cold pool for a bit. I'll go into the sauna. I'll probably do a little workout, maybe a walk around the block, doing the things that are going to help me, get rid of it.
Yeah. Well, and, gosh, I definitely appreciate you coming on tonight, because I know what that's like when, you're just not feeling yourself, or you aren't in a good frame of mind. And yet, especially when you have depression or anxiety, because I lived with that for most of my life too. And so it's sometimes you put on that brave face, any way you slice it. But, hopefully, and I don't know if it's like this for you, but sometimes when things like that happen for me, at least I know now, because you've got the information as well, about your brain. And that's the way I look at kind of testing, or any testing really, even hormone testing. You just look at it as information. Okay, what can I do now? I can choose to do this, or I can choose to not do that. But if you choose to do this, so hopefully you look at it as information, and at least and you understand your brain a little bit more, which kind of helps you hopefully be give yourself a little more grace sometimes, and understanding, and hopefully it gives your family a little more understanding as well.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things was being able to forgive myself. Realize like, okay, yeah, it is. It's not just me being weak-minded or wanting to not be a good dad right there, or whatever it might be. It's like, okay, I have limitations. Like, that's what it is. And the nice thing that I think I realized this year was, because before, especially when I was going through healing and everything else, I would be doing great, and then there would be a bad day, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like it was all for nothing. I'm going downhill. This is the start of it being really, really bad. And that was happening for a while, where everything would be good, and then I would hit those points. But now it's like, okay, no, I understand that I'm feeling this way because of what happened earlier, and I know by tomorrow it's going to be gone. It'll probably be gone tonight. I figured just talking with you would make me feel so much better. I knew it would. I love talking with people, and especially about brain health. So, I think that understanding that it is a temporary thing, that's the emotion I'm feeling right now. That doesn't mean that that's how I'm going to be feeling tomorrow, next week, the rest of my life. It's like, no, things are going to be good. I'm going to figure out how to get past this right now. Right.
And I totally was going to say something. I just lost my train of thought. So producer, edit this part out. Sorry about that. And it was really good too. I had it right there at the tip of my tongue. And then I just was listening to you, and then it went right out. So what was your first step in kind of taking charge of your brain health? What would you say the first thing was where you noticed the biggest impact, I guess, is what I'm trying to ask?
I think it was the supplements. The supplements with Dr. Mark Gordon, I think that made the biggest difference, or that was the first noticeable difference. After that, it was really hard to say what was helping. How much was this helping compared to this, compared to that? Because at the time, also, I was doing therapy as well, and it was just, I think I needed everything. I think the neurofeedback definitely helped me in different ways. That focused on my sleep and cleaning that up, because I hadn't been getting good deep sleep for, they said, probably at least 20 years. And so each of the things, I'm sure, improved me some way, but that was one of the difficult things. I think that's one thing that some people may have a hard time with, because you may not know exactly how much something is helping. Although with neurofeedback, we were able to see, like on test scores and different things like that, and measuring of waves, that, okay, yeah, that definitely improved here, and it definitely helped with this, and so that was nice. But it was really a combination of things. But it wasn't until, after I wrote the book, I put it out, I kind of ended it on like, okay, I probably don't have CTE, and let's just hope for the best, and I'm going to be fine. And I wanted to leave it at that. I wanted to say, I was like, okay, I'm just going to believe that because otherwise it'll be depressing. But it was about a year after that when I went into the worst depression I'd ever been in. I think, or it might have been 2 or 3 years. It was just last Christmas. And it lasted probably about a month of just anger and depression. And it was really bad. Enough for me to contact the Amen Clinic. And then that was a whole nother step. That's a whole nother part of the journey. And I really, I'm incredibly grateful for all the different things that I've done. I think all of them were important, but it's just now the final bit with the Amen Clinic and getting a hyperbaric chamber for the house. And, that has made the biggest difference.
Yeah. Well, and I think and you touched a little bit on this earlier too, is people with brain health or mental illness, it's not something like a cut on your arm that you can see or a broken leg, that you can physically see as much, or that people notice. So like you said, you thought that you were fine and your wife thought you were fine. But until you actually see it, and that is the beautiful thing about when you go to the Amen clinics and the SPECT scan is you can literally see certain things in your brain and the patterns of blood flow and how things look, if there's enough oxygen getting to certain areas of your brain, or if those areas of your brain are too active and maybe that's why you act certain ways, or like you said, a lot of your brain was underactive, so it probably wasn't getting enough oxygen, which can make a huge difference in how people think and act and feel. And you're a published author at this time. And so I would have thought, just knowing you had heard that, I would have thought, oh, he's probably fine. You don't correlate, you're a functioning adult, you're an author, that you may have had a traumatic brain injury. Because again, it's not a cut on your arm that you can physically see, or, a tooth that's now missing that, it's a lot of things that you just can't see until you look at the SPECT scan. And how was it when you actually saw it? What did you think?
So that was very interesting. I didn't think it was going to be a big deal. So I wasn't expecting great results, but and I thought the meeting would be fine. But when I met with Dr. I think Mamata to go over the results, I could see in his eyes and hear in his voice that he didn't want to tell me my results, and like he was kind of not scared, but he didn't want to give me the bad news, I guess. And I told him, I was like, Doc, it's okay. I know it's going to be bad. I've been, like, on top of everything else, I've seen the scans of people that have used cannabis for 4 years, and I've been using it for 36 years. So I'm not expecting a great scan. And he's like, well, good. He's like, because it's not good. And he showed it to me, and he said, he's like, you and I are about the same age. He's like, I've been doing these for about 20 years, and this is one of the worst I've ever seen. So I was like, okay. And I was like, yay, me. I was like, yeah, I got one of the worst, number one. But the next morning, that's when the little depression hit. I was like, man, I did all this stuff, and now what am I up against? I see, there was so many. It looks like holes in the brain, right? Where there's no blood flow or very little blood flow. So it was significant damage. And that's after doing everything else. But a nice part of it too, he was telling me, he's like, oh, well, I'm really surprised that, your frontal lobe looks good. I was like, well, that's where we concentrated on with the neurofeedback. And those were the areas that we healed. So that, was part of it. But yeah, so seeing those results and hearing those results were tough, but I'm so glad I did, because then I was like, okay, this is serious. This is all I have. I want to fix it. I don't want to be living with depression, anxiety, rage, and all these other things. I want to be the best husband I can, the best father I can, and live a great life. So, I told them I was going to do everything that they suggested, and I have, and I'm feeling like it's unbelievable what a difference 1 year has made.
Yeah. Well, and you have a story, much like a lot of people that I talk to. whether it's me or you, I think we all have to go through something because we have a bigger purpose to share the information. And it's unfortunate sometimes the roads that we have to take to get there, right? The muck we have to go through, much like Andy Dufresne in Shawshank Redemption, if you ever saw that, where he had to go through a lot of funky stuff to come out on the other side. And going through all that funk, you're not thinking, oh, this is great. It's literally funky stuff sometimes, and it's not pretty, and it doesn't smell good, and it's not pleasant to go through. But when you do start to come out on the other side, there is a lot of hope that you start to feel, I think, and an encouragement that your body really can heal, and things can change, and you're not stuck with depression. And because I don't know if you felt like this too, but when you were going through some of those depressive moments, did you kind of sink into depression, just thinking, "Oh, I have depression"?
Yeah. Like it was never going to end, and that's just what it is. And that was going to be a permanent thing, or for a lot of my life. And so, that was definitely a scary thought.
Yeah, because I know that's one of the things that I try to remind people too. And one of the things I really want people to understand is that you don't have to be stuck with that. No matter what it is or what illness you have, it is going to take some work on your part. But sometimes there's just simple things. Like you said, you noticed a big difference just with the supplements when you started taking those. And so it's not always big monumental things. Sometimes just taking the supplements can be a big monumental thing daily that you have to remember to do or get in the habit of doing. And then when you finally do that habit and change that part of your life, you go to the next one and you tackle the next habit and the next thing. And so there are sometimes a lot of simple things you can do, but it's sometimes really hard, especially when you're going through depression or anxiety or anger. You don't want to do those things sometimes. And you literally have to force yourself sometimes to do those things to continue to get better.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, it's a choice you have to make. And I think that's a great point, because people think, especially if you're in a bad situation, and I've talked with so many like MMA fighters and boxers who they're like, what can I do? Like, I'm just, it's only going to be bad from here. It's like, no, and that's what I really like. I really like being able to give people hope. So not only the information that, there are ways that they can get better, but, showing them, telling them how bad I was and how much better I am now.
So it sounds like your brain was really kind of starved and needed some of those, again, simple things that we don't always think about how our body really needs. And I know, like, for example, magnesium is one of the things that most people are depleted in. And so I'm sure, I don't know if that was one of the things that they recommended to you, but what kind of what kind of food did they recommend? Or did you have any dietary changes that really kind of stuck out to you?
It's kind of hard to remember. I think I was eating fairly decent by then, although that's not really true. I know when I was on the road and going around to all the gyms and all that kind of stuff, I was eating terribly. I was heavy. But so I probably started adding a lot more organic, more vegetables and fruit, probably getting away from the processed stuff. But it probably wasn't as big of an impact, because I think I had been eating fairly clean, and I was worried about my kids. I wanted to make sure that they were eating better, so that had been a concern. But in addition to the supplements, there was one big thing that Dr. Gordon had me go on, because my testosterone was so low. And so that was the only thing that was the prescription, and that was Clomid. That, because I was naturally producing testosterone, but not very much, it just helps you produce more. And so I went from maybe like a 300 testosterone level, which was really low, all the way to one point I was at like 1200. 1100. And so that made such a big difference, because then I wanted to do more. I had more energy. I felt better. So just that part of it alone was a huge difference.
Yeah, well, and I don't know what your age is, but I know that, and I was just talking with somebody else recently about this too, that, women obviously go through menopause, but men go through andropause just naturally, even without fighting or anything like that. And so I think not enough men even think how about their hormones can totally change as well. Now theirs usually is more of a gradual decline rather than the women's just kind of just cut off all of a sudden sometimes. But so theirs is a little less abrupt than the females. So I think that's another reason why men don't really think about their hormones too, is because it's just gradually declines. And, you know, your hormones can make such a huge difference, not in just how you physically feel, but mentally as well.
Yeah. And Dr. Gordon really helped me understand that, because he was saying, you know, the Western approach, like people just accept that with age, our testosterone, our hormones are going to go down. They're not going to be as good. We're not going to be as healthy. But he said, like, that's just ridiculous. Why should we accept that? Why not optimize it? Why wouldn't you want your hormones to be at the ideal level? So why accept it? And I'm so glad I made that change. I decided to, you know, take his advice.
Yeah, well, and like I said, it not only helps your brain health now, but it helps protect for later on as well, which, again, not many men or women think about.
Mm-hmm. Very true.
So that's so interesting when you were talking about the SPECT scan at the Amen Clinic, how wonderful it was that the neurofeedback was already helping improve your brain health. Were there any other kind of surprises that you thought about in your brain, either good or bad, when you saw it?
Not from the scan, but with one of the other meetings with the functional medicine doctor, Dr. Plant. You know, then that's what I really appreciate too, being looked at different angles. With him, we realized he had me do different testing after talking to me about everything, and we found out that I had Lyme disease, Bartonella, which is, I think, from cat scratches. So I had been fighting, you know, dealing with both of those, not even realizing it. So now we're treating those. Also, sleep apnea. I wasn't aware that that was an issue for me. So now I'm taking care of that. Well, partially taking care of it. It's improved. I haven't fully committed to getting that fixed, but I will. So those were some of the issues. And then the other thing that was probably one of the biggest things with Dr. Mamata, early on, he asked me how I felt about therapy, and I told him, I was like, oh, I've done enough. You know, I've done plenty of therapy. It's not going to help me anymore. But he had recommended cognitive behavioral therapy, which I hadn't done before. And so in our next meeting, I asked him, I was like, you know what? That probably makes a lot of sense, because even if my brain health is better, I still have all these old patterns. I have all these old triggers, you know. So anytime someone cuts me off, like, I could be happy. I try to be, you know, cuddly, loving, best father ever, do a lot of yoga, meditate, all this stuff. I just want to be positive and peaceful. But if someone cuts me off, like, I'll flip to red, and like, I want to fight now, and it was scary. So that was one of the first things we tackled with the cognitive behavioral therapy. I've been doing it once a week with a therapist from the Amen Clinic, and I actually look forward to those sessions every week. It's just been so helpful. Started doing EMDR. That's been incredibly helpful as well. So I think a lot of people just think, well, you know, this is just who I am. It's not going to change. But you can change those things. A lot of people don't want to look at their negative behaviors, I think. But no, I had to look at them because I didn't want to throw away my life. I'm incredibly grateful for what I have. My family, my house, just everything. Lucky to be alive. I was suicidal most of my life. I didn't think I'd make it past 24. Now I'm 52. And probably one of the healthiest and happiest times of my life. So therapy has definitely been a major factor. I tell everyone, like, yeah, you should do it. Everyone has issues. Everyone has something from their parents, from their childhood, from whatever, some kind of trauma. And it would only probably help.
Yeah. Well, and one of the recent things that I really started to want to do, because, again, until I worked at the Amen Clinics, I mean, I knew of therapy, but I didn't realize how many different types of therapy there was. And, you know, anytime I had depression or anxiety, I was just lumped in the go see a therapist, you know? Mm-hmm. And it's like, I always think too, like, did I get the right therapy? You know, I mean, I had some really wonderful and nice therapists, but did I get the right therapy that I needed? Mm-hmm. And you just mentioned CBT. That's a big one that, you know, at the Amen Clinics, they are always looking for recommendations. But EMDR is another one that you mentioned, and I just actually recorded an episode. Her episode's going to be airing shortly after yours, because I want people to realize that there's not just one type of therapy. You need to get the correct therapy for whatever your struggles or you're going through. Otherwise, you're just going to be spinning your wheels, and you might meet a great therapist, but is it really going to help resolve some of the issues that you do currently have?
Right. And the awesome thing about going through the Amen clinics is that she has all of my information right there. She can see my brain scan. She's seen all the doctor's notes and everything else. So there's a much deeper level of understanding. And having therapists that understand brain health, that's huge.
Yeah, it is wonderful, especially when they do want to collaborate with the Amen clinics, and they do want to see your scans, and they kind of understand, even if they don't fully understand what is going on when they collaborate with the doctors at the Amen clinics, and they kind of get an understanding, oh, okay, so this is how we can target now and use CBT, or this is how we can target now and use EMDR to really help him get past this trauma or this incident or these behaviors. It can make such a life-changing experience, really.
Yeah, for sure.
And again, not just for you, but for your family as well, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that was one of the reasons I failed to mention this, but one of the reasons I did turn to the Amen clinics. Well, one, I'd written about them in the first book. I thought they were great, but I was like, I don't need them at this point. But my wife and my niece both went there, had amazing times. Just everyone's been so nice, so helpful, so patient, so caring. That's a big part of it. But yeah, the way that they handled both of them, I was like, okay, now I'm going in fully trusting them. And I think that's been a big part of it too, just trusting the process. Like, okay, you know what? I'm going to take their advice. They are professionals. They see everything. If they're going to recommend something, I'm going to do it. Because if I don't, then, I'm not going to get any benefit. So let's go ahead and try this. So being able to trust them and just go for it has been big.
Well, and it's been wonderful, I would imagine, to have a supportive spouse and family that's, well, and especially it helps that you said she went through it, so she literally knows what's going on. And now you can see inside each other's brains. Mm-hmm. That's even more interesting.
Yeah. No, it helped so much. It helped me understand her. She has the over-functioning, can't turn her brain off. Then she's able to understand mine, and then we see what each other's triggers are, and being able to have that. And my son has done a good amount of neurofeedback. We've had him looked at for different things, and now we better understand him. It's like, okay, that's your anxiety, and now we know how to deal with it, instead of just simply telling them like, hey, stop crying, or or whatever, and not liking the behavior and not understanding it. So being able to understand your family members and to normalize it, right? To them, my kids are not going to think anything of therapy, of all these other things, because they understand, like, okay, yeah, Dad's always talking about brain health, and he goes to therapy, and he's doing these things, and it's just normalized. And I think, that, and that's one reason why I love how Dr. Amen calls it brain health, and getting away from the mental illness, right? It's all brain health stuff, and just figuring out the best way, figuring out our brains, and then figuring out how to improve them and to, live our best life with what we have.
Yeah. Well, and I recently had a guest on, and they said they equated therapy to like when you go to get an oil change on your car. Everybody goes to get oil changes on their car, or they take it in to get the transmission looked at. And why wouldn't you want to do that for your brain? And this is literally you and part of you, and that's way more important than just your car,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and I know that's a big thing too. Sometimes I feel guilty talking about, and when I was writing the book, I felt guilty about it as well, about the different things that I was fortunate enough to be able to do, like the neurofeedback. A lot of people, don't have the funds for that. Having a hyperbaric chamber, oxygen chamber, and things like that. But I try to remember, it's like, okay, well, still showing them that change is possible, and you don't need all those expensive things necessarily. There are other ways to improve your brain. through food, through supplements, through all the things that, but again, it's making that choice like, okay, well, yes, that is X amount of dollars, and maybe you don't want to spend it, but really, like, are you going to blow it on that instead? I think a lot of people might make that decision. They don't care that much about their brain health or overall health. I think it's an easy thing to forget about until you have something traumatic happen. Until you're in the hospital, a lot of people aren't going to care, about their life expectancy or whatever else. They won't think about it. A lot of people don't want to consider their mortality. But when it pops up, like you'll deal with it then for sure.
Yeah. Well, and that is very true, and I would personally, again, now that I'm in this space and now that I've seen how I feel now compared to what I used to feel, and again, I'm 52 as well. I never thought, like, I feel way better now physically and mentally than I did when I was 16 and 25 and 33 and, and it's like, I can't believe all those years I struggled, through a bunch of things that when I didn't have to, but then again, I think, okay, I went through that because now I'm supposed to be here and
Right.
helping people, and now I get a chance to help people and tell people. So hopefully that's where the good silver lining is, right?
I think so, and it is. I think that's how I look at it. We could look at anything either positively or negatively, so why not spend it positive?
Yeah, and I'd much rather spend money now on prevention and my health now, so that way I don't have to hopefully spend it on illness or sickness or some kind of bad injury later, worse. So I'd much rather spend it now. And my husband has seen the effects from, I started doing hyperbaric oxygen, and you saw me when the day I was in the HPOT chamber. Just after the first 3 or 4 sessions, he already noticed a difference in my attitude. And I mean, he's seen the transformation from my mental health, because he's been with me pretty much the whole time the whole time I moved back to Wisconsin, and that's when my real health journey started. So he's been with me through this interesting ride, and so but then when I started doing the HBOT, just the first 3 or 4 sessions, he already noticed a huge difference. I mean, I noticed right away, but he started really noticing some changes as well, and that can make dramatic changes as far as your brain and life health, really. Yeah.
No, I think I'm on maybe 60 or 65 sessions so far. I probably do 4 days a week, and I feel good. Sometimes I would have a hard time, and it would be hard to go into it, and I would feel like sometimes I would get upset even looking at it, because it would remind me that it's something I need to do. It's because I've messed up my brain, and I would think negatively about it. But now I've gotten to be pretty good about you know what? That's my quiet time. That's my time to, it's not a waste of time. This is my private space. I can meditate in here. I can write in here. I can read in here. I can sleep in here. And being able to take advantage of that has been huge, and I think it's made a giant difference. Whenever I tell people about my brain damage, they don't believe me. They're like, "Well, you're not stuttering, and you seem totally good, and everything else." I was like, "Well, I wasn't as good a year ago, not at all. And 4 years ago was even worse." Incredibly grateful for that I took their suggestion and went ahead with that.
Well, that's great. That's wonderful that it had such an impact for you. And when you do, the nice thing about when you get a home chamber is you're not the only one that can use it. I mean, your family can use it as well, which is very wonderful.
Yeah, although my wife still has not gone in it because she's incredibly claustrophobic, and the idea of it freaks her out. I was like, if you just go in it, you'll be okay. I try to assure her, but it's not for her yet. Maybe one day it will. But my son goes in there sometimes, and we'll go in together, and that is definitely nice.
Well, that's one of the things I like about the hyperbaric chamber too. Is although I think it's great for everybody, I think that there's going to be a right time for people as well, because much like anything with health, if you're going to be eating really poorly and making unwise choices and drinking, but you're going to the gym, it's like that's only going to get you so far with your health because you're still not doing any of these other healthy things, and you're living in you got to kind of do all the little steps as well to make the best impact on your health. Because going to the gym is great, but when you're adding all these other toxins in there, it's not doing your brain any good, your muscles any good. And it's like, you just got to do the whole package sometimes. And so sometimes it's just baby steps, little other things first, and then add the icing on the cake later.
I think that's the best way to start. That's the best way to start anything, whether you're starting a new sport or anything at all. It's like, okay, I'm going to ease into it. Otherwise, I'm going to get burned out or hurt myself or I don't know, whatever. But no, I think it's smart just to go in nice and easy and not thinking that you are going to change everything at once. It is a process. It is a journey. That really hit me hard. I forget which doctor it was that made me see that or helped me realize that. It was like, no, it's a lifelong journey, not just for me, but for everybody. Like that's something you got to think about the rest of your life if you want to have the best life possible.
Mm-hmm. So what were you talking about exercise? Did they recommend exercise for you, or what types of exercise? Because I know you mentioned that you like to meditate and do yoga.
Mm-hmm. That had been probably my main go-to for the last 4 or 5 years. I really embraced yoga. I started it with rehab for my knee, and then I just realized how powerful it was, what it was doing for me emotionally, and I really appreciated being able to move a lot more. But I think it was about 1.5 years ago I got back into jiu-jitsu, and I really loved that, but my doctors were concerned because they call it the gentle art, but you still get dropped on your head sometimes. You still take elbows to the head. I went in this morning and I had a guy trying to nearly broke my nose. I was kind of upset. My doctors encouraged me to back off on that, and now I am way more careful. I'm better able to protect myself. But exercise, now I realize. Because for a little bit when I stopped doing jiu-jitsu, because I had a lot of pain and everything, I wasn't wanting to do anything, and I noticed a big difference. I noticed a just overall shift in feeling, the way I felt about myself, body image, everything else, energy levels, and so I started working out, doing weights again. And so now it's a combination of mobility or yoga, walks with my son. We're trying to do more stuff and being active, realize it's important for him as well. And that's made a big difference. I can tell the days that I'm exercising and the days that I'm not.
Yeah, I would actually agree with that 100%. And I am the type of person still where I don't, and I'll quote unquote, like to exercise, but I feel so amazing when it's done, and I never regret going, it's just, especially this time of year. And I think, do you still live in California?
Yeah.
Okay. See, I live in Wisconsin, so it's really cold here. So it's nice and comfy in the bed in the morning. So it's really hard to get up and get out of bed and go to the gym or to exercise. So, but I never regret going, and I'm always happy I go. And every time I go, I literally think to myself, this is great for my brain, not just now, but it's going to be great for my brain when I'm 95 or 105. And so I need to go and exercise because it's only going to help my brain.
Yeah, that's one of the things I did. And I often feel like a weirdo when I'm doing it, but because I have a hard time forcing myself to work out. I'm the same way. I love jiu-jitsu. That's awesome exercise because I don't know I'm exercising. I'm having fun. I'm wrestling with people, and that's fun. But great exercise. But as far as lifting weights at home, that's very hard to do, especially after sitting here all day or and being with my son and homeschooling. I was I just don't have the energy. So I was okay, here's what I'm going to do. Every day, when it's time to work out, I'm going to go into my cold pool. It's not cold for you, but it's 55 degrees right now. So that's definitely enough to shock my system. And so it's a mental toughness thing. It's not that easy just to walk right into it, and I'll stay in there for 5 minutes. and just telling myself, like, okay, no, this is what we're going to do. Now you're going to go into the sauna for a little bit, and then you're going to go work out. And yeah, so anytime that I step into there, like, I know I'm going to have a good workout. I know, like, it's just like, okay, that's it. Let's just go and get it done. But that's one of the steps I do just to ensure my compliance, I guess, with the workout.
Well, and I heard Mel Robbins one time talk about how she does not like to work out either, and she literally forces herself, and that's okay. And some people, maybe eventually they'll like it, but I personally don't think that I will ever like, quote unquote, like it, but I love the feeling afterwards, and I feel so amazing, and I do notice a difference when I don't do anything, in the morning. Later on that day, my brain's not as focused, and yeah, it's just not as good of a day as when I had worked out. So I definitely try to work out a lot more now on the regular.
Yeah, and I think, for a sense of pride and accomplishment, and like, okay, well, I did something, maybe it wasn't a great workout, but I did get up and I did it, and yeah, I like those types of thoughts.
Yeah. Well, what kind of advice would you give to people who are thinking about, or possibly any mental health struggles or brain health struggles that they're experiencing? Is there any kind of advice that you would have for them?
First, I would say not to feel alone. Not just because there's people like me, but because I think the majority of people, and maybe that's a little bit extreme, but I think the majority of people have brain health issues. I think everyone does an incredible job of hiding it, right? No one wants to show up at work and like, oh yeah, I have depression, I could barely get in today because my anxiety is so high. And maybe people are talking about it a little bit more now. Maybe it's a little bit more acceptable. But I think once people understand that and the stigma is gone, and then they also realize that it is brain health and that it's not mental health, so that there's something wrong with them, like that, I think that will help. So I would say, understand you're not alone. Understand a lot of people deal with brain health issues and probably what they're going through, but then to seek the right kind of health. I would highly recommend the Amen Clinic. The Amen Clinics are incredible. I'm very grateful for what they've given me, but there are also, other doctors you should see. But yeah, definitely find help. Therapy is a big part of it as well. And like you were saying, finding the right therapist. I like being able to go to one place and having them set everything up for me. That was one of the really nice things, because I get overwhelmed with things. I know that if I had to do it all, if I had to find my therapist, if I had to find this kind of doctor, if I had to schedule something with that kind of doctor, it probably wouldn't have happened. But because I was able to go there and they set everything up and they have this doctor for me and this doctor and they're going to recommend this therapist, I was like, okay, that was incredibly helpful. So if that's the sort of thing you need, yeah, I think it is well worth it. And again, some people will say, well, I can't afford it, right? I really can't afford it. It's like, well, I don't know. Like, how expensive is your car? And all these other things. Like, do you need a brand new car, or could you have gotten a used car and use that other money for your brain? I think it's just looking at that importance. And like you mentioned as well, the final cost is going to be crazy. I think we prevented my mom's dementia. Her sister, that was one of the best things that happened with my writing the TBI book, was I discovered neurofeedback. I realized my mom was having a lot of issues. We were noticing memory problems and these other things. Her sister has advanced dementia already. So we finally convinced my mom to go get tested. She didn't want to because she was afraid of the results. And her sleep had been terrible for like at least the last 10 years, where she was only getting like 4 hours of sleep a night, if that. Mm-hmm. She got tested. She was testing pre-dementia. So we're like, okay, that this continues, she's going to have it. But she did just one, I think it was 30 rounds of neurofeedback, 30 sessions. and she no longer tested pre-dementia. Sometimes she'll still call us up and crying, thanking us for the change. She sleeps through the night. Sometimes, not every night, but it's just so much better. Like just that alone, that's amazing. So, you can get better. You will get better if you take the steps to get better. If you find out, and that's one of the big things. Like, just be okay with finding out whether or not you do have a problem, and it will if you do get a diagnosis. Like, that's kind of awesome, because you're able to forgive yourself for lots of the things that you dislike about yourself. So, like, now you understand a little bit more of why you were doing those things, why you had those behaviors. And so
and I think there's such a fear with getting the information, and I'm trying to change, one person at a time, to change their mindset that it's just information, and you have so many choices out there and how you can tackle it to help it, and even if there's 500 things you can do, just start with one. One is better than none, right? Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. So that's awesome that your mom was encouraged and has noticed a difference as well. So that's great.
Mm-hmm.
Have you gotten her in your HBOT yet?
No, I should. I'm about to have my nephew come over and use it, because he's had a lot of concussions. He was just in a car accident.
Oh.
I had a friend who was in a really bad motorcycle accident 2 months ago. He couldn't get rid of his post-concussion symptoms, like really bad. Couldn't even drive. He came over. He did, I think, 3 or 4 sessions and was feeling awesome. Didn't need it anymore. So and he had a lot of broken bones, and he was trying to help with that healing as well. So who knows how much it did for him, but I think it's an incredible tool, and if you can take advantage of it, definitely do so.
That's wonderful. So you mentioned that you were thinking about getting a second scan from the Amen Clinic. When do you already have that planned, or
I need to schedule it. I think my first one was in March.
Okay.
And so I think we want to do it a year apart, and I'm feeling so much better. So I still have my negative moments. That's something that therapy has helped me accept too. Like, I can't be happy all the time. Like, people get upset, people get triggered. That's just part of it. But yeah, overall, I am just so much better. I'm looking forward to seeing what it's like. Even if I didn't see that much of an improvement on there, I wouldn't be depressed, because I know how much better I'm feeling. I know how much better I'm functioning, and I get that kind of feedback from my family and friends as well. So, but it will be nice. I want the scan because I do want to be able to show other people, like, okay, look at the difference. In the TBI book, I show the difference between the QEEG, how this part was really under functioning, and by the end of it, it's, now it's back to almost normal, or where it should be. That'd be amazing to do the same thing with the SPECT scan, because I think those images, I think they're more convincing. When you see, like, oh my God, this is what it looks like now. If we could fill in those holes a little bit and bring that blood flow up, that'd be nice. So that's the idea is, and if I don't see that kind of improvement, maybe I don't see as much improvement as I want, then that tells me, it's like, okay, well, what else can we do to make this even better? The continued use of the HBOT will help, but maybe there's some other things that we can do as well. But I feel, I think that's going to be cool to see the results.
Yeah, that will be great. I'm looking forward to seeing your results, if you don't mind sharing those someday.
Oh, no, not at all.
I will gladly share my results because I've had traumatic brain injury as well. So, and I also I had anaplasma last year, which is a co-infection from Lyme disease.
Oh,
and then this year that was gone, but now this year I had actual a Lyme one. So I was kind of on the struggle bus with that as well, which HBOT, my understanding is HBOT helps with Lyme because it does not like the all that oxygen.
Oh,
so
perfect.
That's wonderful.
Do you take any herbs or anything for the Lyme? I have to take the most disgusting stuff, and I hate it. But it's like that's probably, again, that's one of the negative things. But because it's the grossest drink I've ever had. But again, it's just like, okay, but I'm doing this because I want to heal myself. I want to improve myself. So I'm going to trust my doctors that this is working. I can't see whether or not it's getting rid of the Lyme, but, I'm taking his word for it.
Yeah, that's great. Well, before we go, I always ask my guests for their don't miss this moment, and it would kind of be the one real key takeaway that they would want the listener to really remember or hope that hits home with them and to ponder. What would your don't miss this moment be?
Probably going to it being a journey, and not thinking about the past, not worried about the future. It was like, okay, this is where I am today. What can I do today to make this a better day? And then tomorrow you're going to do that same exact thing. The day after that, you're going to do the same exact thing. You just have to make the right choices. So I think really setting your mind, like, what do I want for myself? Do I really want this? Some people may say that they want a better brain, but then they're not going to put in the work. But really find out whether or not that is what you want. Make up your mind that you are going to go after that. You're going to achieve it, and then stick to that every day, and just realize, like, you're going to have bad days, you're going to have good days, but you have your whole life ahead of you. Just keep making the right decision. Yeah, that's great. Forward progress is still progress, right? Mm-hmm. As long as you keep going forward. Mm-hmm. That's great. Well, why don't you tell my listeners where they can find you, follow you, buy any of your current books, or maybe some upcoming books that you may have? Awesome. All my books are on Amazon. You can just search Mark Tullius. It's all on there. Also, my website is marktullius.com. I believe all my socials are on there as well. I love connecting with people, especially talking about brain health, and I'm always open for messages, whether you have a question about brain health, writing, whatever. Hit me up. I love talking to people. Well, and I will put that in the show notes, so when people are not driving or they want to click on the links, they will have that at their disposal right away, so they can reach out and connect with you. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for being on today. I really appreciate it, and you and your guest that you've had behind you. Derek. Yeah. Oh, Derek. Okay. Yeah, Derek the demon. No, thank you so much for having me on. And like I said, I was in a terrible mood all the way up until this started. So I really appreciate the conversation, turned around my day, and I appreciate being able to get out my message. Yeah, it's great. Well, I very much appreciate it. Thank you so much for being on. Thank you. So, Charlie, why don't you give us a little quick overview of the alumni program and what it is?
Well, the Amen Clinic's Brain Warrior Alumni Network is a network that's comprised of, intended for the 85,000 individuals, men, women, and children that have gone through our clinics and our 11 clinics around the country. So those men and women represent all states of the United States and countries around the world. And it's a remarkable opportunity for me to be able to come in and to be able to help the Dr. Amen and the Amen Clinics team to put together an alumni program that just launched 10 months ago. And it's really designed to keep all of those alumni connected with resources, support, and tools that help them continue their brain health journey. It includes ongoing access to educational materials, workshops, webinars, the opportunity to stay connected with others who have shared similar experiences, and to be in support of one another. And this is it's a free of charge service to all of our patients that's there for the rest of their lives. Yeah, it's such a wonderful thing to offer patients that I don't think enough of them know about. And that's why we're here today, to kind of discuss it, to answer a few questions, and hopefully maybe they'll get them connected with you. Absolutely. And, we haven't really launched a public portal, and that's going to be actually public and live for lots more people to know about us as of January 28th. We do have a Facebook page, but it's not as active as we would like, and the portal is really going to be where all the activity takes place. And again, by invitation only, free of charge to all of our alumni and private secure network. So what kind of, what does the program help? How does the health program help participants maintain or continue their brain health journey? Because that's what really the Amen Clinics really helps them with. Absolutely. Well, one of the things that we offer is our monthly Zoom meetings, which happen on the second Thursday of every month. So that, for instance, the upcoming Zoom sessions that are going to be taking place, I'm going to read a little bit of the schedule to you, is Dr. Robert Johnson is going to be talking on January 9th. These are all at 5:30 Pacific Standard Time. Are you living in the gap or the gain? And then Dr. Neha Kansara is going to be talking about integrative approaches to ADHD. That's one way in which people can certainly come together, be of support for one another, get access to our MD experts, have the opportunity to learn about some of the latest and greatest research that's happening in treatment, but also be in a community of their peers, people who are there to support one another. We also have ways in which people can get involved through our Alumni Ambassador Program, which is really those men and women like the individual you're going to be having on the podcast next month, who can talk about their shared experience and can share the life-changing work that Amen Clinics has happened in their lives and how they want to be able to share that story far and wide, whether it's through recorded video testimonials. We just had an individual yesterday, or Mark Tullius, who wrote the book, What the Hell is Wrong with Me, TBI or CTE. He wrote this book and came in and was recorded yesterday sharing his testimonial. He was a UCF boxer, fighter, he was a football player at Brown University, and it had suffered a number of traumatic brain injuries through concussion. And it's come out through on the other side because of the treatment that he's gotten from Amen Clinics. His life is dramatically changed, but he wants to basically advocate for the just brain health and wellness in whatever form that people can find it, and certainly through Amen Clinics.
Well, and that's always wonderful when people can give back to help other people, because I don't think enough people realize that there are programs like that out there, or things that can actually help them, especially when it comes to brain health.
Absolutely. And truly, I think one of the greatest gifts that any of us can give, especially in a network like ours, is the opportunity to come back and give back and share the story. Just in the telling of the story is a healing experience, and just being there for one another is a wonderful sense of support. Each and every one of these ambassador Zooms that we have, and then we've also had one in person in Costa Mesa. And we're going to be, by the way, we'll be sending out a survey to our alumni, hopefully going up by next week. It's really going to ask probably 10, maybe 12 questions. We're whittling it down this week that ask about the kinds of programs and services that they want. And do they want to have them via Zoom, or do they want to have opportunities to gather in person? And if so, where and when do we want to pull those together so that we're really building a program for, by, and with our alumni?
Well, how can someone who's been a patient of the Amen Clinics join the alumni program or learn more about the ambassador program?
Well, everyone who has been a patient will be invited to join from us. But if they've not received, or they want to gain access to the alumni network now, all they need to do is simply email me at croddy@amenclinics.com, or they can actually phone me personally on my personal cell, which is 760-567-8260. Or if they're near one of their local clinics in one of our 11 clinics around the country, there's information and brochures at each of the clinics on how they can get access through a QR code that they can scan and just get right into the program.
Well, that's great. And I will definitely put a link in the show notes as well to those episodes. So that way people can find you also, in case they're driving and they can't write your number down or your email address down.
Don't want them to write it down, right?
No. So what's the biggest takeaway or message that you hope the people that hear about this and want to learn more about the alumni carry with them after
I think the biggest takeaway is the understanding that brain health is an ongoing journey. It's a lifelong journey that really requires lifelong commitment and care. And so I think alumni are encouraged to embrace really, through the network, a proactive approach to maintaining their cognitive function, using the tools and the support they've gained through the program to continue optimizing their mental well-being for the long term. And that's why I start off by saying this program is a commitment to all of our alumni for the rest of their lives. We will be there for the rest of their life. We will build this program brick by brick by brick, based upon the interest and the feedback that we're getting from each and every one of them in terms of what is it they want. Like we're going to be having an alumni retreat, most likely in October of 2025. And what are some of the elements that people are going to be looking for in terms of what that weekend should look like. Do they want certainly talks and discussions with our AMEN experts, but do they want to have opportunities to socially engage with one another? Do we want to do hikes? Do we want to have certainly shine a light on the accomplishments of our alumni in alumni, what we're calling the alumni awards dinner and a show, having an opportunity to bring people together, bring them together to share and to celebrate their accomplishments, but also have a little bit of fun with it as well. So we're trying to build in enough buzz and enough interest, certainly, for people to can come into the portal, which is how they'll learn about the program, become engaged through either we'll have 11 regional chapters at each one of our clinics around the country that people can get involved in, or they can get involved through the Ambassador Network, which is a national network that really goes out and offers testimonial about the life-changing work that they've seen in AMEN clinics and wants to encourage others to follow their lead.
Well, and that was going to be my other question too, is how does the program offer opportunities for the alumni to give back or to mentor to others?
We just talked about that. That's a big piece of it, right, Wendy? I know you joined us on Saturday. That the program of our ambassador is clearly a program that says, these are men and women. When we actually first did our first survey about 8 months ago, we asked one of the seminal questions was, would you like to share your story? Because we know that there's a real healing element to sharing your story just by speaking the words and speaking your truth to power. But also there's a real sense of real value to those that are struggling with the decision of, should I seek care? I'm not sure. Are my symptoms really something that I should be concerned about, et cetera? So the fact of being able to be involved with the network as an ambassador or simply as a mentor, that's another piece of the program that we'll be launching when we launch the program. You know, there are men and women who have struggled for long term and are on the other, well on their way to lifelong brain health. And how do they share that, the tasks and the skills and that they have learned along the way, support those that are coming up alongside with them and sort of walking that journey together. It's a really, really important piece of the network.
Well, that's great. So why don't you tell us again how people can connect with you so they for sure have that. And like I said, we'll put this in the show notes so that way people will for sure be able to click on the links and find you and all the good things that go along with the alumni and ambassador program.
Absolutely. Well, they can certainly email me at CRODY, C-R-O-D as in David, D as in David, Y at amenclinic.com, or they can phone me at 760-567-8260. And if it's not when I'm at my desk or at my phone, I will always get back to people within 24 hours.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I'm so glad that you were able to share all that valuable information with us. And hopefully somebody out there listening right now is an alumni and they don't realize it and they want to get connected.
We're ready, willing, and able to engage people wherever they are, whatever their needs are. Like I was saying a moment ago, this program is being built as we move. We're not waiting until it's fully loaded and ready to pull out of the box. We're building this together with our alumni. So it truly is a program, of the people, for the people, and by the people. And that's a real strong commitment that I have to making sure that we truly have a program that serves the needs and interests of our alumni and also supports the division of our founder, Dr. Amen, and engages them in the life of AMEN clinics.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for being on. I appreciate your valuable insights.
You're very welcome. Happy to be here. Happy to join you at any time. And thank you very much for your interest and support of our work.
If you want to continue learning and hearing all things nutrition for your mind, body, and soul, click like, subscribe, or favorite me on whatever podcast platform you use. Or you can find me at ForgivenNutritionist.com. This podcast was designed to educate, inspire, and empower you to achieve your health and wellness goals. It is not meant to diagnose or treat any illness or medical condition or take the place of any treatments from your current healthcare providers.